how do we do this? Yeah, it works.
खराब है वो
Thank you. By expressing my joy that I can be amongst all of you here. So thank you very much to our hosts for opening your home and allowing us to gather here together and chew in some nectar. So since many of you I may be meeting the first time here, right? Yes. So maybe I will just very quickly introduce myself. So my name is Devaki, Devi, Dasi. I am originally from Germany, but I never lived there as a devotee. I met Krishna consciousness in Australia. That's why my accent is some little mixture there, some little touch of Aussie language, but then a little bit of German also in there too. So I met Krishna consciousness in 1985. I traveled the world looking for a higher purpose to life, and I had already given up my professional career and everything before I even met the devotees. I somehow knew this was not what I was meant to do in this life. So, and then 85 I moved into the ladies' ashram, and I never went back to any professional work. So all these years I was full-time in giving myself to this preaching mission. And I was also married for 10 years, so I didn't always look like this. I always like to emphasize this. So when I was married, I was wearing very colorful saris and earrings and bangles and nose rings and the whole lot, and makeup and everything. Even though you may find this hard to imagine, but I can show you some pictures if you like. Yes, so, and in my 10 years of married life, somehow by Krishna's arrangement, we pioneered the first more organized temple in the former Soviet Union in Latvia, which is the most western part of former Soviet Union. So these were very exciting, adventurous times in pioneer work. And very quickly people came from all over former Soviet Union, and we had a buzzing temple with about 75 brahmacharis. Wow, yes. And 30 brahmacharinis. So that kept us very busy. So then in 1999, my former husband left me, left Krishna consciousness, and Maya is very strong, so sometimes even though devotees have such a great time, but nevertheless, Maya can catch us. So then he left, and I thought, okay, let me move on, and that's when I went gradually into white. And since 1999, I'm basically living out of a suitcase, you can say. My base is Mayapur, so I spend about 2.5, 3 months per year in Mayapur, and I do different events there and give courses and holy name retreat in Ekachakra and so many things. And the rest of the year I am, 5 months per year altogether I spend in India. I visit different temples in India, also in Bangladesh. Anybody here from Bangladesh by any chance? No. Yeah, Bangladesh, very special place. I lost my heart in Bangladesh. And yes, and the rest of the year, the other 7 months, I travel a lot around Europe. Before the war started, I spent a lot of time in Ukraine. For over 20 years I've been very involved there. So yeah, this is very heartbreaking when you know people there and you know all these towns and cities which are now in the news. I've been everywhere basically. So yeah, very terrible what to do. So yeah, all around Europe, but then sometimes I come to the US and Canada or Australia, New Zealand or South Africa or something. So this is the 3rd time I'm visiting the US, and I have been once before in San Diego about 6 years ago. Yeah, so, and I have two humble missions in my preaching: the holy name. I am convinced that we don't make enough effort to get on deeper levels of chanting, so I like to conduct holy name retreats, which is also always a very deep experience. And then I also have established a little institute for spiritual culture. I brought a little brochure along here. Actually, Badri Maharaj was very much encouraging me to establish this institute. Before he took sannyas, I traveled with him 2 times around Bangladesh, and that's where he got to know me a little bit, and so then he encouraged me to preach more about spiritual culture, because in Bangladesh I learned so many things, how this Vaishnav culture is meant to be lived. So, and I put all these courses together, and now I'm putting these courses in book form. So I brought some books along just in case some of you will be interested in getting them. I will speak a little bit about the books at the end. Yeah, so that keeps me busy and hopefully out of trouble. Yeah, so tonight we have our topic, Prajalpa, it will destroy this movement. This is actually a statement by Srila Prabhupada, and the way I understand it is not that it is a prediction, this will happen, but more of a warning, you know, that if we don't let go of this bad habit of engaging in prajalpa, then this has the power to destroy this movement. Yes. Because it is interesting to understand that the real dangers for Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, they don't come from outside. They actually come from within. Outside attacks usually unite us in preaching, in fighting against the attacks, you know, and it is an impetus to preach. So the outside attacks, they are uniting. But what is very disuniting is when there is attacks from within. Yes. And usually the root cause of all kinds of problems is actually prajalpa. And we will maybe discover this a little bit tonight. So for those who maybe don't realize what prajalpa means, it is basically worldly, unnecessary talk. Yes, when we talk about mundane things which are not connected with Krishna consciousness, that we call prajalpa. So we have some shastric references, and actually, by the way, this year I gave this presentation in Mayapur. We had the ILS, the ISKCON Leadership Sangha. There for a whole week, or leaders from all around the world, they came together and they, you know, attended all kinds of presentations and discussions. And I was allowed to also give a presentation there. And I chose this topic. And yeah, people liked it, you know, because it is just so relevant, especially also at present moment, you know, where all kinds of things are going on in ISKCON and so, and of course internet is really magnifying this tendency to talk prajalpa immensely. This is, by the way, one reason why I live without a mobile phone, believe it or not. I traveled the whole world without a phone. I have, of course, a laptop, I have to communicate, but I don't always carry that in my pocket, and I don't get distracted all the time by this. So, and this is really a good protection. it protects me from prajalpa because I'm not on any social media, nothing. I'm usually the last person who hears things, because I'm just in my own world type thing, It's like, it's a good way to be, actually. Yeah, so let's go back to the Shastric references. Nectar of instruction, Adhyaya Prayasascha, Prajalpa Niyamagraha. So Prajalpa, there we have it, the 6 kinds of activities which create obstacles in our devotional service. That is, one of them is Prajalpa. So the translation is that our devotional service is spoiled when we become too entangled in talking unnecessarily about mundane subject matters. Of course, we may think it is always necessary. We may not understand how unnecessary it is, our worldly talk. And then we also have the first verse in Nectar of Instruction, Vacho Vegamana Sakoda Vegam, Jiva Vegam Uda Pasta Vegam. So that says that we have to control these urges, right? Yeah, the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of tongue, belly, genitals. So the tongue, belly, genitals, they're in one line, and it all starts with the tongue. We have to learn to control the tongue. And as we all know, tongue has 2 functions, to eat, to talk. So in both activities, we often go overboard. That we eat too much. When I see this big feast out there, I'm already thinking, oh my God, thank God this is not according to my diet. So I cannot be tempted, to eat late in the evening, some heavy meals, Yeah, so we overeat, and that's why sometimes it's good to fast. Last week we had Nirjala Ekadashi, right? Yes. And next week we have normal Ekadashi. So yeah, it's good to give the system a break, and yes, stomach also needs an off day, yes, and it detoxifies the body. So anybody who knows a bit about Ayurveda understands that even though the food may be very nutritious, but if we eat too much, we cannot digest it, and that nutritious food goes in as toxins into the body. And same thing actually happens on the subtle level too. If we talk too much unnecessarily worldly things, that creates toxins in the subtle body. Yes. It creates toxins in the mind, And we can understand the holy name carries an echo called Dvani. So when we had a very nice chanting experience, maybe with a great saintly personality, some of you may have been to Sadhu Sangha retreat, right? Who was there? Yeah, quite a few. Yeah, so there were so many wonderful personalities there, wonderful kirtans. So sometimes we may have had that experience that after a nice kirtan, we have this nice warm feeling in the heart. And we feel like going in seclusion and just maybe chanting an extra round and being in nature or something, and allow this nice feeling to still work on our heart. So that's the echo which the holy name carries. So, and the quickest and surest way to destroy this echo is what? Prajalpa. Yes. It immediately destroys this echo, switches on the mundane mind. Yes. So I mean, we may have all heard this many times, that prajalpa is an impediment in devotional life. And yet, we may not realize how much of our talk actually falls into that category. Yes, we may not realize. So, and that's why I like to discuss these topics, just to become a little more conscious, because that's always the first step when we want to change and transform a habit. That first of all we have to become conscious of it by hearing, and then hopefully we desire to do something about it. Yes, so I would like to go through Bhaktivinoda Thakur's chapter in this book Bhaktialoka, where he talks about prajalpa, and he gives some different categories of prajalpa, which I find very very nice to discuss, because then we become more conscious. Oh, okay, yes, I'm doing this, and oh yes, I'm also guilty of that one. And so, yeah, very nice. And actually, to begin with, I do want to share a couple little stories with Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada, he was very strongly preaching against this tendency of talking prajalpa. There is, in Australia, there was this little episode. Korma Prabhu wrote a very nice book, The Transcendental Adventure, describing Prabhupada's pastimes in Australia. So he shares there this incident where Upendra was cooking lunch for Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's room was next to the kitchen, and some devotees from India came back to Australia. So, and usually, I mean, in those days there was no internet and WhatsApp and all these things. So usually when some devotees came back from India, there's always some news to share, right? About this person and that person, and oh, have you heard yet this thing and that thing, and so many things. So this kind of talk was going on in the kitchen, and Prabhupada heard it, and he got very angry, and he called Upendra in the room. Upendra, what are you doing? Are you talking prajalpa? And Upendra was all cheekily saying, is talking about other devotees, is that prajalpa, Prabhupada? And Prabhupada, yes, this devotee, that devotee, life is short, don't waste your time. You know, and when two devotees meet, they should talk about Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, service to Krishna, and not this devotee, that devotee. And he gave a whole big lecture there, you know. And then a similar thing also happened again with Upendra. He seemed to have been famous for talking prajalpa. And again, Prabhupada called him in his room, all angry, blasting him. And that's when he made the statement, prajalpa, it will destroy this movement. You know? Yes. Yes. And then there was also another funny little incident. That was when the telex machine came out. So this is really outdated technology now, telex. Nobody uses that anymore. That was the previous technology to fax machine. Even fax, I don't think anybody uses anymore, you know. But yeah, the previous technology to fax was telex. So, and somewhere here in the US, the devotees had acquired such telex machine. And Prabhupada was there, and the devotees all excitedly, they were showing Prabhupada, oh look, this telex machine. I think it was the first technology where at the same time, simultaneously, the message came out at the other end, you know. I mean, Prabhupada was communicating with telegram and not our social media telegram, but a different kind of telegram. Also, nobody writes telegrams anymore, you know. Yes, so in any case, devotees were demonstrating to Prabhupada this amazing technology, and Prabhupada was always open to check out, you know, the modern technology. So he was all looking at it and, yes, amazing, good, you know. So, and then devotees were suggesting, oh, Prabhupada, maybe every temple in the world should have such a telex machine. And then we can communicate instantly all over the world. Prabhupada's answer, no. And he said, if every temple has a telex machine, you will talk Prajalpa all around the world. That was his answer. And without technology, at least the Prajalpa is limited, you know, to our room or our community, but with telex all around the world. So I'm sometimes wondering what Prabhupada would say about WhatsApp and Facebook and all these things, you know, whether he would use this, you know, a little doubtful, you know. Even though, of course, I understand there is also some little good part in it, you know. We definitely can reach out and preach, and so many devotees, their first contact is through YouTube or whatever. But yeah, unfortunately, and most devotees agree with me on that the positive part is the smaller one, and the bigger part is actually the negative one. Yes, because it has to be used with controlled mind and senses, and yeah, it just really magnifies that tendency to talking Prajalpa. And I mean, just in regards to Prabhupada and modern technology, I think it was in Juhu when Prabhupada moved into his quarters in Juhu, and the devotees had put a phone line in his room. That was the first time that Prabhupada had his phone, you know. So, and the devotees thought, yes, this is some big improvement for Prabhupada that he has his phone there in his room. So then the first night, what happened? Phone rang in the middle of the night. You know, and Prabhupada answering the phone, Hare Krishna Swamiji, I just wanted to hear how you are. You know, people had forgotten the time difference. And Prabhupada next day, take the phone out. I don't need a phone. He was already fed up with it after the first night of somebody disturbing him. You know? Yes. So, yeah, I mean, it's quite amazing when we think about it, how Prabhupada spread, you know, Krishna consciousness all around the world without a mobile phone, without internet, social media, you know, email, even no email, just normal letters and telegram. That was his way of communicating, you know. Quite amazing. Yes. So let's go to Bhaktivinoda Thakur's book, Bhakti-aloka, the 6 faults that destroy bhakti. So there is this chapter about Prajalpa. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur starts by making this point that today people are more and more godless. Right? God consciousness really going down the hill. And therefore, naturally, their talk is also godless. Right? And godless talk, that is Prajalpa. Yes. Yes. So it is greatly increasing simply because people's God consciousness is decreasing. You know? And yeah, this Prajalpa is a great impediment in devotional service. And interestingly, we will discover this tonight, that the root cause of most kinds of Prajalpa is actually envy, which is our topic for tomorrow's Sunday feast lecture. And yeah, so in that way it fits quite nicely. So today we will discover how this prajalpa mainly has its roots in envy. And that, of course, makes it also more contaminating, because consciousness travels on sound vibration. So if we say things coming from an envious heart, then that envy travels on the sound vibration and affects people's hearts who hear it. So that's a second reason why this prajalpa is so contaminating. Not only because it is worldly talk and not connected with Krishna, but also because of the root cause being envy. Yes? So, good to understand, you know. So, first category that Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives, he calls it useless talk. Useless talk. And he puts in this category, you know, novels. People read all kinds of novels and love stories and whatnot. You know, so this is in the category of useless talk. But then, interestingly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur includes there also the news. The newspaper, which is, of course, again, outdated. Although on my walks I do see they deliver newspapers, right? Still. I thought nobody in the world reads newspapers anymore because it's all on internet, you know. But no, it's not quite, has not quite disappeared. So yes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says newspaper also falls in the category of prajalpa. So this is interesting. And let us explore this a little more in order to understand why the world news are also in that category. There's again a nice story with Prabhupada when he was sitting on the plane with some disciples, and in the early days they would distribute newspapers on the plane. That they don't do anymore, at least in those airlines I'm flying. You know, I've never seen a newspaper anymore, but I remember 20 years ago or something they were doing this, or 15 years maybe. That was usually the only time when I had a look what's happening in the world, you know, when I was sitting on the plane and the newspaper was given up. So Prabhupada was sitting on the plane, and his disciples were reading the Time magazine, which is known to be a good and critical magazine, you know, with interesting, thought-provoking articles. And so Prabhupada said, oh, let me have a look at this Time magazine. And he was flicking through the pages. Then he was giving it back to the devotees and was saying, devotees should not read this. And then he made this profound statement. He said, it makes this world look so real. That's quite a profound statement. It makes this world look so real. And that's exactly what it does, you know? Especially if we overly absorb ourselves in reading for hours what's happening and researching on different websites and oh my God, you know. So then we start thinking this is reality. This morning in the Bhagavatam class, we were talking about the nonsensical stage performance of living in the material world, you know. So no, it's not reality. It's a nonsensical stage performance. At the moment of death, who cares who was the president and this and that? No significance, absolutely none, right? Yes. So eternal reality is my relationship with Krishna. What's happening in Goloka Vrindavan? That's eternal reality. So the more we burden our brain with these temporary news of the world, you know, the less space is there for the eternal reality. and those news from Goloka Vrindavan, you know. So that's why, we should actually keep our involvement and absorption in reading the news to a bare minimum. Just enough what we need to know to perform our service and to perform our work, but not more than that. And because I'm traveling, I have to look a little bit what's happening in the world. I actually remember for years I had no clue. I was not looking at any news. And sometimes when I was in Sankirtan in the street and people were commenting, oh yes, in the US they're electing a new president, I had no clue. What? New president in the US? Okay. I didn't even know. Oh my God. But then when the first little war started in Ukraine, and devotees were saying, what, you're going to Ukraine? Don't you know there is a war there? So that's when I thought, okay, looks like I should look a little bit in the news what's happening, And of course during COVID I always had to see, can I travel and what are the restrictions and all this, So that's actually when I started looking at the news. But I just look at the headlines. Rarely I even open the articles, just flicking through it for 10 minutes. You know enough what's happening in the world, No need to even get into all the details and all this, just knowing a little bit, and that's enough. And it shouldn't take that long, to grasp that, Yes. So then we have the next category. So let me see, how do I drink with this thing here? I wouldn't be able to, drink without touching to the mouth with this in front of me. Yeah, so next category is arguments. How often do we engage in some stupid, petty little arguments, especially within family life? Oh my God, Yes. Because I give all these different seminars, often people come with their marriage problems and people say, I don't know why we are arguing over so many stupid little things. They're not even so important. They're not some life-death topics or what. It's the false ego, getting into it, who is right, who is wrong, and all this kind of things. So yes, arguments, Bhaktivinoda Thakur very nicely expresses it. He says, arguing is wasting the mind's strength. So that the mind has some strength, some power, and we simply waste it if we engage in arguments, And interestingly, when people are quarrelsome, it is definitely connected with envy. Yes. Because we are trying to establish our superiority, that we know better, and we have to have the last word and all this, yes. So envy, it's interesting, we will discover this tomorrow, that envy really comes out in all relationships. It's actually, I like to understand it as a certain state of heart, envy. And then it comes out in all relationships, with seniors, with equals, with juniors, So, yes, and this tendency to argue is a way how we try to establish our superiority and we put other people down, So, yes, devotees should stay away from this. And it requires that we control the tongue, right? Yes, because false ego is very much pushing this, it's demanding this gratification to be right. And it really requires that we control the urge to speak, to just be quiet, you know? Yes, yes. And I mean, Prabhupada was saying, you know, the quarrels between husband and wife should never be taken so seriously. Actually, we can compare to a thunderstorm, you know. So, thunderstorm, some grumbling there in the sky. So, you know, if the husband grumbles and, you know, has to ventilate his dissatisfaction, a clever wife will just be quiet, let him grumble. Sooner or later, it's over, like the thunderstorm. No need to answer back, and, you know, like we don't, you know, grumble against the thunder, you know. No need. Let it grumble. Sooner or later, it will be finished, you know. So, good practical tip, you know. Clever wife will just let him grumble, you know, and knowing it will blow over sooner or later. How long can he go on if the wife doesn't answer, right? Not much fun for him. So to argue, you always need two, you know. And if the wife is just quiet, oh well, you know, how long can he go on?
Same applies for the husband, wife. Reverse.
He's saying the same is there for the husband. If she grumbles and carries on, then he's just quiet. Yeah. Yeah, well, interesting observation. Yes. So let's move on to the next one. Gossip. Gossip. I think we women are pretty good at that, you know? Even though, yes, I have to be careful not to make any gender-related statements. But yes, gossip basically talking about others without good reason. So of course, we always think that we have a good reason, you know? But actually to have a good reason to discuss other person's characters or activities, the only good reason is if we are in a position, you know, of authority towards that person. If we are a manager, a department head, a counselor or mentor, and we discuss a person's issues in a well-wishing mood of wanting to help him, you know. But that's the only good reason, you know. And of course, to talk about devotees' wonderful activities and good qualities, no restrictions. That's not in the category of gossip, obviously, you know. Glorifying the devotees, pointing out their nice services, their nice qualities, that's uplifting to our consciousness. But talking about people's faults, you know, this is contaminating the whole atmosphere. It actually magnifies the faults. It makes it bigger. And it's not helpful to anybody. Not to us saying it, not to the other person hearing it, not to the person who we talk about, not uplifting for anybody, right? And again, why do we gossip? Why do we like to talk about other people's bad characters? In order to establish our own superiority, right? Indirectly we say, I don't have that fault. I'm so much better, right? That's behind it, definitely, you know. And yeah, this gossiping creates so much misunderstandings, because when you gossip from one person to another, everybody adds their little thing to it, and then in the end something completely different comes out, and then it goes back to the person, and then, oh, why did you say that? I didn't say like this. And like this, it goes in circles, you know, no end to it. Oh, oh my God, you know. I mean, I experienced this during pandemic, because usually, see, my good fortune is I usually just only stay for 1 week in a community, so there is not enough chance to get into any kind of gossip, you know, because after 1 week I'm moving on, you know. So, but during pandemic, I took shelter in some rural communities, Simhachalam in Germany, very nice community actually, with big Lord Nishingadev, and there's other communities also. But yeah, you know, once you're 4, 5, 6 weeks in one place, you realize how much gossip is going on in this, especially when people live together, you know, like in a village. The village talk. It's more happening when you really live together. In a city community, I think people are too spread out, but still, WhatsApp is always there, you know, to gossip. Yes, but yeah, this gossip is so destructive, you know. It really creates pride and bad feelings and misunderstandings and confusions and you know, terrible, terrible. And interestingly, I like to put in this category also this tendency of not being able to keep things confidential. This has really become a problem, because I'm also preaching a lot about the importance of mentorship, of having a counselor as the foundation of devotee care. I was for some years a member of the devotee care committee and the GBC strategic planning there. So there we were discussing these things, and we were making manuals and all these kind of things. So, and yes, you know, one main problem that people find it hard to reveal their heart to a mentor is that fear that people cannot keep things confidential, you know, that people are afraid if I share this with this person, he will share it with others. And so often we do this, that we say, oh, guess what, this and this and this, but don't tell anybody, it's confidential. You know, keep it confidential. So then that person says the same thing to his friend, keep it confidential, I'm telling you something here, but don't tell anybody. You know, so, you know, and then everybody knows about the person's problems, you know, and then often it comes back to them. You know, somebody stabs that person in the back there somehow by hearing this information and all these kind of things, you know. And I was trying to understand, why is it so difficult for people to keep things confidential? And again, it took me to our false ego topic, because it's very subtle, but it's a kind of showing off behind it, that we are the ones who know something that others don't know, right? And we say, oh yeah, have you heard? Oh, you don't know? Well, I know, such and such told me. So just see how special I am. And I am the one who gives you the news, you know? Yeah, it's a subtle false ego thing there behind it, you know, that we cannot keep things confidential, and we try to show off how special we are, what a confidential associate of this person, and you know, yes. So we have to be very careful. So then the next category is debating. I see debating as a more fierce and serious argument, you know, the debating. And why is debating so contaminating? Because again, there's the false ego thing involved. Usually when we debate, We just want to get our point across. We don't want to hear what the other person has to say. We just want to, get our point across. We are not in a humble mood of inquiry, but we just want to be right. Yes. And that again is connected with false ego, envy. By the way, false ego and envy, they're good friends. They always like to move around together. Yes. Yes. And very often these debates are going on over the internet. Very often. Maybe you have had the situation that somebody makes some statement, maybe about yourself or others, and so many people read it or hear it, and then you feel, well, I have to respond to this.
Comment.
Yes, I have to comment, otherwise everybody thinks this is true, right? So then you make your comment, then what do people do? They twist it around, make a weapon out of it, boom, shoot it back at you. And then again you think, so what to do? I can't keep quiet, otherwise people will think it's true. So you comment again, same thing, twist it around, weapon, boom, shoot it back at you. And like this it goes on and on and on and on. No end to it. No end to it. So devotees should stay out of this. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Finished. Pull out. No use. Because you can really feel the contaminating effect in the heart. That you get all angry and frustrated and inimical towards this person, and your mind gets disturbed, you can't concentrate anymore on chanting and it just increases so much negativity in the heart, So better not to engage this. Doesn't matter what people say about us or think about us. Let it be. No need to, engage in this debating, And actually, this tendency to debate, this really has the power to split communities. And I think we noticed this maybe in the COVID times. I have come across this on my travels, that these COVID measures and vaccination, yes, no, there was so much debating over this. And these two camps, were formed, and both camps were trying to save the world and convince everybody that they are right. And in some communities, the relationships were so damaged over these debates, over COVID. I couldn't believe it, Yes. But these things, it's everybody's private, personal matter, Same like taking medicine. Some people take antibiotics, some don't. Some people do chemotherapy, some would never do it. Well, it's our personal decision. Why do we think we know what is right and we try to save the world here with our opinion or something? Yes, and during COVID times, I realized, yes, Prabhupada's statement, Prajalpa, it will destroy this movement. This is a fact, And a similar thing, unfortunately, also is going on with this war in Ukraine, amongst the Russian and Ukrainian devotees. Oh,
So sad.
yes, so sad. I mean, it's bodily platform, my God, but there's all these discussions, who is behind it and who is right and wrong, and is it Israel behind it or America and this and that. Oh my God, I mean, it's beyond our circle of influence. What we think doesn't make any difference. No need to even, waste your mind's strength in these kind of discussions. What difference does it make what we think? You know, we can't have any influence on the situation. It's just pajama, nothing else, you know. And yes, sadly enough, amongst Russian Ukrainian devotees, there has been so much damage and discussions and hurt feelings and you know, terrible. So devotees don't engage in this, you know. Yes. At the moment of death, who cares? You know, really, not important. Yes. So we have a few more, so please bear with me. The next one is fault finding. Finding faults. Oh, I think we are pretty good at that too, right? Yes. Very often we are projecting our bad habits in others, you know? That it's actually our problem and we think, oh, the others all have that problem, you know? It's projecting. And we also say when we point the finger at one person, 3 fingers point back at us, you know? Yes, that we actually have that problem, you know? Yeah, so fault finding again. Why do we find fault? Because of envy. We want to put others down. We want to minimize their importance and establish our superiority. That's what's behind it. And there is one interesting thing. Our previous Acharya Sridhar Swami makes this statement that he says, whether it is true or not, talking about faults of a Vaishnava means blasphemy. Wow. Even if it is true that he has that fault. Yes. But just the fact that we feel this urgency to talk about it, if we really look in our heart, there is some envy there. Yes, that's why we like to make this statement, you know. Yeah. Quite subtle. But we do this all the time, you know. And we think, well, it's true that this person has the problem. Can't I speak the truth? Freedom of speech, what's happening here? You know, why can't I say my opinion? You know, it's true after all. But no, just the fact that we want to talk about that and make this statement shows some envy. Yes. Like an example, let's say a traveling preacher visits our community and gives a class, and then a friend of ours says to us, oh, that was a nice class, wasn't it? And we say, yeah, it was all right, but it wasn't so Shastric, he didn't quote so many verses, and, you know, or same with the kirtan. Was a nice kirtan, was it? Yeah, it was all right, but I didn't like the tune, his mandanga playing was not so fantastic. Even if it is true, but just the fact that we feel this urge to point it out shows envy. And it falls into the category of blaspheming devotees. Yes. Which is another category that Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives to blaspheme devotees. So we know this is the first offense to chanting the holy name, to blaspheme devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name. So yes, even if it is true, good to keep that in mind, you know. And we see that our great sadhus and saintly persons, they never talk bad about devotees. And it's not that they don't see their faults, but no need to talk about it. What is it going to improve? Unless the person talks to that particular person about it, if there's a strong relationship, you know, then that person can point it out. But to just talk about it, no need, you know. Yeah, so this fault finding, creates also a lot of negative, energy and ill feelings and misunderstandings and politics. And. So, and then the last one, speaking falsehoods, fake news, creating rumors. I mean, out there in the secular world, it's a big thing. It seems like it's some people's full-time engagement to just create fake news and disturb, the world and create frictions and, misunderstandings and conflicts and, getting some pleasure in, playing one against the other by creating fake news and you can't even control it. Internet can all propagate it all over the world, creating so much disturbance. You can't control it, Before we had all this Facebook and stuff, that tendency of fake news was pretty limited. It was controlled. But now, uncontrollable. And so much havoc is created by it, Yes. And I mean, we have to be careful that we don't allow this to also enter our communities, that we create some fake news, some rumors, spread some rumors, talk bad about some person and create some things there which don't even exist. And then it goes around and everybody goes against that person and, prajalpa, yes. Okay, so these are the main categories of prajalpa according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Maybe just before we open for questions, let me just share one important rule of Vaishnava etiquette, which we often don't know and don't follow. So the rule of Vaishnava etiquette is, when there is some disagreement on a senior level, we, from a junior point of view, we should not get involved. We should not discuss. We should not take sides. We should not pass judgments. Who is right, who is wrong? No, this is against Vaishnava etiquette. But we do it all the time. All the time. Yes, whenever there is some issues amongst the GBCs or whatever, and so much talking, and what do you think about this, and blah, 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 and have you heard, and actually I think this and this, and because from a junior point of view, it's above our heads. We don't know, we don't have the insights. What is really taking place there and what are the reasons why certain personalities make certain decisions. We don't know, we don't have the full picture, right? And then guaranteed, we perform aparat, we pass some judgments on senior persons which we cannot really, we cannot really understand the whole situation. So it's beyond our circle of influence. It's none of our business, actually. And we should just not take sides. This is really important, because when we take sides and discuss, then again the whole prajalpa goes around and it creates misunderstandings, conflicts, and misjudging situations and personalities and it's such a basic rule of Vaishnava etiquette, but yet we love to get involved and have our opinions and all of this. Yes. Yeah, actually it was funny. When I was in Europe, I visited a country called Moldova. You may not even know that is existing. It borders onto Ukraine, so I've been going there for many years, for 20 years. So because the Ukrainian war is a little closer to them there, I was just giving this whole presentation about Pajaba, and guess what? Afterwards, one devotee came up to me and said, Mataji, so what do you think about the war? You know? And I said, hey, didn't we just talk about it? Don't ask me, I don't care. It doesn't matter what I think, you know. But yes, this is how deep-rooted these tendencies are, even after discussing for a whole hour that we should not get involved in these things. He comes up and asks me, oh, what do you think about the war? You know, who's behind it? And, so, we have to learn to control our mind and our tongue and, really don't engage in these, forms of pajapa. So let me see, since it is a pretty practical topic, let me see if we have any points of further discussions or questions.
Practical.
Okay.
For example, Mataji is sharing that, I got hurt, but I emotionally got hurt, suffered from some other devotee, and you support her, and I understand. So does it consider pajapa also?
So the question is if one devotee shares how she got hurt by another devotee, whether that's pajapa. Well, it depends what is our relationship with this person. Actually, such things should be discussed with a mentor, a counselor, a more senior and experienced devotee who also can give us the medicine. You know? So very often we don't go with these things to such a person, but we go to an equal person who does not give us the medicine, who will say, oh really, that's what she did? Or actually she did that with me too, and I know how you feel. And that's what we want to hear. You know, I know how you feel, don't worry about it. Yes, I know she's doing these things, and she did it with me too. You know? So, and then, that makes us feel better. But that's not the medicine, you know? And definitely very damaging this is when we go to a junior person and say these things. Very often we do that because also we women digest things by talking about them. Whereas men, they digest things by hiding in their cave. You know? The Mars and Venus book talks about these things, you know, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Maybe you've heard this title. It's quite good. Yes, I know a few Maharajas who even read that book just so they can advise their disciples in their marriage problems. Yes, so, and that's why sometimes senior devotees reveal all their things to a junior because they just need somebody to talk to, you know? And then after sharing all these things, the person says, oh, thank you for talking to me, I feel so much better. So the senior person feels so much better, but the junior person got this whole bucket of garbage over their head, and they wonder, what am I going to do with all that? And if my seniors go through all this, what hope is there for me, you know? And they're left all bewildered and they don't know what to do with all the information, you know? So we have to reveal our mind and heart to a senior qualified person who will instruct us, because maybe we also, did our part to the situation that we got hurt, you know? So a senior person will say, a senior person will say, yes, I know how you feel, I can understand, but let's have a look. Why is Krishna putting you in this situation? There must be something Krishna wants to teach you. You know? Not a blade of grass moves without Krishna being in control. So what's your lesson here to learn? And how did you contribute to the whole situation? Because it's never only the other person. You know, yes. So a senior person who serves as a mentor will point out these things. And they actually help us. You know? But if we just tell it to somebody who says, yes, yes, I know she did the same thing with me, that's not going to be much help. You know? Yes. Yeah. So, in other words, it would be Prajalpa if we reveal our mind to an unqualified person. Yeah, to answer your question. Yes?
So many of these points, like the debating and the arguing, also gossip, like I'm thinking in my own experience, sometimes we engage in Prajalpa, or at least I engage in it because, it's coming from my impulsivity. Sometimes I don't like control maybe my emotions because I'm feeling something very intensely. You just want to let it out, right? And you don't really think about it. So how do we come to control our emotions or impulsivity and avoid, offending a Vaishnava?
Okay. So step number one is always hearing about the topic. You know? So once we hear what a damaging effect it has and how much it creates an impediment in our own devotional life, then it becomes clear that we have to do something about it. We have to learn to control it. And yes, for our emotional support, this is one reason why it is advisable to be married. Because the husband, this is one of his foremost duty, to give that emotional support. Out of the three kinds of support, spiritual, material, emotional, the emotional one is the most important one. Yes. And if our emotional needs are satisfied within marriage, that frees all our other relationships from these emotional needs, and thus they are more pure. You see? So that's one thing. But often, unfortunately, the husbands are also not so good in giving that emotional shelter, So sometimes they have to learn that a little bit. Yes, because men don't have as high emotional needs as we women do. So often for the men it's all some dumb game, this emotional support and hearing the wife and, men always like to give the solutions. But women don't want solutions, believe it or not. They don't want solutions, they want to be heard and understood, right? Yes. But interesting, this is also explained in the Mars and Venus book, If you don't have it, get a copy, it's good. So, but often when the women complain about something, they actually only want to share how they feel, And they want to be understood. But a man usually gets easily irritated because he feels it's my fault that she's unhappy. Because deep down he knows it's actually his duty to make her happy. And if she complains, then easily he says, well, why don't you do it like this? So they don't go there anymore. And then the solution. But that irritates her because she feels he doesn't even, he has no empathy. So that's why men and women are so different, as if they come from different planets, Mars and Venus, and speak different languages. and always misunderstand each other. And even that is also perfectly Krishna's arrangement, that we come to this conclusion, this man-woman relationship is not the everything, Yes, with Krishna, that's where we have to put our love in. Krishna should be the object of love, So that's why Krishna perfectly arranged this, that there's always so many misunderstandings, that sooner or later we get the point, Yes, so, we do need emotional shelter, and the best way to find it is within marriage, but then also in mentorship, mentorship, mentors, counselors, they're also meant to give emotional support, but together with, spiritual instruction and understanding and all that, Anything else? Yes?
So the urge to provide advice, right? We're talking about, when someone reaches out, it's very common. That's also an impulsive act, right? To provide, and that is rooted in ego, or is it something else? How do we control that ego of not being self-realizing, not being qualified to provide that advice?
The urge to give advice. Yeah, I mean, put it that way, amongst women, it is often seen as a sign of friendship, actually, isn't it? Whereas, a woman giving advice to the husband is often not so welcomed. You may have noticed that. I wasn't even planning to get into any marriage topics, but let me just share one little experience from my own marriage. Because when I was married, I didn't know all these things which I'm teaching now, nobody explained them to me. So of course I made so many mistakes. Rasa, doesn't work, Even though, if a wife is clever, she learns to make her idea his idea. Actually, let me advertise this book. Married Family Life is an Ashram Sequence of Success. So I don't have the copy here now, but there is a box on the way to LA. So, and I'm going from here that you get some books so you can order it. There's a lot of things in it, really. Yes. Yeah, I hope it will be helpful for our devotees to make our Grihastha ashram more solid and harmonious. Yes. So there's all kinds of interesting points in it. Yeah, so anyway, giving advice, we have to go back to your question. We have to see what relationship we have with that person. If we are senior and we serve like a mentor to that person, then of course we can give advice, you know. But even there, I mean, often people, you know, ask me for guidance and mentorship and all that. And I don't like to spoon feed people with solutions, because then they don't take responsibility for it, you know. So I simply try to help people to see, if I do it like this, then I may get this result. If I do it like that, I may get that result. And simply help people to see things from different angles, you know, rather than only one angle. And then let them make their own decision, you know. Otherwise, they will blame you for it and say, well, you told me I should do this and this and this, you know. And then people also become lazy, you know. They don't want to go through this internal process of actually making their own decision in life. And they just become lazy. Oh, my mentor told me I should do like this and this, you know. No, sorry, you know. So a good mentor will not spoon feed their mentees with solutions, you know. So we have to learn how to give advice so it is actually uplifting to people and they take responsibility for it and they make their own decision, you know. And I mean, Krishna is doing the same with us, you know. He says, so if you do like this, you get this result. If you do like that, you get that result. So now you decide, you know. Yes, yeah. So yeah, we also have to do like this. But it very much also depends on the relationship, you know. If we have a strong relationship, then we can also correct. But if the relationship is not so strong, then people easily get offended, you know. Yes. So yeah, and if we can't control that urge of giving advice, good chance that there is the false ego at work, you know, pushing us to show that we know it all better and we are superior and all that. You know. Yes. And also, I mean, we say a sadhu will not speak unless the person is actually ready to hear. Not willing to accept it, and therefore you can't give it. Wow. You know, so even gurus are struggling with that. So we have to see whether the person is actually open to accept, you know. So I think we'll maybe close it at that because it is 20 to 9, but I do want to quickly take the opportunity to tell you something about these books. Spiritual Culture, Krishna's Divine System. This is all about the man-woman nature's qualities, mentalities, how they're very different, as if coming from different planets, Mars and Venus. And they are so different because according to Krishna's recommendation, they're actually meant to play different roles. And we women, we are in many ways superior to the men. You know, women's Shakti, very powerful. And we are good in multitasking and so many things. But we have to learn how to use that Shakti. In the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says, we women are meant to be the power of inspiration to the men. So we are actually meant to give that Shakti to the men and make them the hero, rather than competing with them and being the hero ourselves. Yes. So I would say this book is a must for anybody, man or woman, who wants to have a harmonious relationship with the other gender. Yes. Quite insightful. of course, it's completely against the modern propaganda of feminism and equality and all that, but it gives really deep insights how this man-woman equality puts Krishna's system out of place. Yes. Yeah, it's quite eye-opening. So then we have sheltering relationships. The topic is about mentorship. That having a mentor and eventually becoming one is of crucial importance. Without having a mentor, we actually cannot make advancement. Very easily we stay in our comfort zone and then we become stagnant. So we need somebody to point out to us how we can move forward steps by step. Just having a Diksha Guru is unfortunately not enough. Yeah, because our Diksha Gurus often have hundreds and thousands of disciples. We may only see him once or twice a year, and he may just not be so absorbed there in our practical situation. When he's a sannyasi, he's not meant to look into our marriage problems and all these things. That then it's not a topic actually for a sannyasi Diksha Guru, But because we don't have mentors, that's why often we go with all these things to our Diksha Gurus, And eventually we should also become a mentor to others. Yes. Then the false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. I think the title speaks for itself. All I can say is it has helped me a lot to discover how my false ego gets into my way. So maybe it also will help you, because false ego is so subtle. In the name of Krishna consciousness, we can easily boost and feed the false ego instead of dissolving and subduing it. It's all going on. Yes. And there's also a whole chapter about chanting the holy name in it. It's like a summary of a holy name retreat. So because the chanting is very helpful in dissolving the false ego. But we have to know how to chant with what quality of feeling. And entering the Grihastha ashram. This is like a handbook for matchmaking. Especially relevant for all unmarried people and for parents who want to help their daughters or sons to find a compatible match. Because like in Indian, families that's so loud out there. In Indian families, people still have that culture that the parents should look for a husband or wife. But often they don't know what to look for. And the only criteria is the caste and economical considerations. But all the devotional considerations, people don't look at them. I have met so many unhappy Indian-bodied couples, and then often the young people, they just blindly go along with it, what the parents suggest. They don't check, are we on the same page? So in this book there's a whole list of over 100 topics which a man and a woman should discuss with a cool head to see, are we on the same page? Very helpful. And it's also good for couples who maybe are married already, but maybe they have not entered the Grihastha ashram yet. So that's the difference, right? Our family life may be rather mundane, it may not be an ashram. And then we have here, part 2, you can see, it belongs together. So this is family life as an ashram, secrets of success. That's mainly about entering, what mindset to have when we enter, the importance of commitment, following the vows, and that's all in this book. And that one is the family life as an ashram, secrets of success. There's many different things in it. Also about physical intimacy and so I hope it will be helpful for devotees. because we have a high divorce rate, and yes, we have to bring some stability into our family life, because the children suffer like anything when parents separate, and oh my God, you know. And it is also entering the Indian families now too, even in India. Yeah, so we need some help here, you know. Yes. Okay, so if any of you want to get some books, these three, they are 20 each, and the other ones are 15. And you can pay by cash or Zelle. Yes. So if you want to get some books, my amount here, my stock is limited, so you better get them while I have them. Okay? Okay, thank you so much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hare 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 Krishna.